The Meta Quest 2 is the cheapest way to get into VR if you don't have a gaming PC or a games console. In fact, even if you do, it's probably still the cheapest way. It's got a built-in processor, so you can play anywhere wirelessly, and it's gotten a lot of people into VR who simply couldn't afford it before its release. But it's not perfect. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that I think it's having a negative impact on the overall VR gaming industry in many ways. This isn't a hate piece, it's aimed to be balanced and look at the good and bad of the headset, and there is no denying the positive effects that it's had. When the original Quest launched in May 2019, we also got the Rift S, and shortly after that, the Valve Index for PC. It was a much needed upgrade from the early VR headsets like the Rift and the Vive, and over the next year we saw a bunch of some of the best VR games ever made. Asgard's Wrath, Stormlands, Boneworks, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, and Half-Life Alyx all released towards the back end of 2019 and early 2020. The VR gaming market felt like it was finally getting some momentum, and we were finally getting some fully fleshed out VR games with good graphics and some interesting use of physics. Unfortunately, this didn't last. The Quest was selling well, and most developers were trying to get their games on the platform. It was seriously underpowered, and even Oculus, now Meta, more on this name change later, knew this because pretty much straight after the release of the first Quest, they started developing its replacement, and the Quest 2 released only 18 months after the original Quest. To everyone's surprise, it was even cheaper at $299 compared to $399 of the original Quest, and that was with a more powerful processor. That price did come at a cost though. The original Quest used two screens inside the headset, one for each eye, which could be adjusted to match the distance between your eyes. This is something that's very important if you want the image to be in focus and not give you a headache. The Quest 2 only had one screen, and the lenses moved, but only with 3 simple presets. So if your eyes are in between the presets, good luck with that. The original Quest came with a solid head strap to hold the headset to your face, whereas the Quest 2 now was with a very simple cloth one, which honestly feels like a torture device when using it. You really need an add-on head strap, and even then the Quest 2 is the most uncomfortable headset I've ever tried. I personally bought the $50 so-called Elite strap, which while better than the cloth built-in one, is still not comfortable, and it's made out of the cheapest plastic. It just cracks and snaps if you look at it with some attitude. Mine is now held together with duct tape. The amount of people having this problem was so bad that they actually took them off sale. Then they just put them back on sale and said who gives a shit. Don't buy the Elite strap, it's terrible. And this leads to my first major problem with the Quest 2 and why I personally think it's harming the VR industry. It's uncomfortable out of the box, and even with the extra strap, it still isn't comfortable, and yeah, while there are other options, this is a mainstream product aimed to be sold to the general public. Most people will just end up buying this with the default cloth strap, play some of the best games, and think that VR is cool but uncomfortable, and end up putting it on the shelf gathering dust. Every time I hear someone talking about the Quest that isn't an enthusiast, and even those that are say it's not comfortable to wear for longer than 30 to 40 minutes. That's not a very good first impression for people trying VR for the first time. Let's bring some balance and talk about some good stuff. The Quest is very easy to use. The initial setup of putting the headset on and setting up your boundaries is seamless, and it's massively impressive. When you have your room set up, you can put the headset on and be in a game within seconds, and the wireless nature of the standalone means that you don't have to be where your PC or your console is, and you can take it to friends and family, spreading the good word of VR. The Quest also has built-in hand tracking, something that others don't, so you can actually navigate menus and open apps without controllers, and some games and apps are even built around this feature. You can also connect the Quest to a PC. This was ultimately an afterthought though. Originally, with the first Quest that wasn't possible, but with some aftermarket software like Virtual Desktop and a good router for the Americans, you can wirelessly stream games from your PC to the Quest. Oculus also added an official cable called a link cable, which can connect your headset directly to your PC using a USB-C connection. This is expensive at $80, but there are alternatives. It isn't a direct port connection though, like a dedicated PC VR headset like the Index. It has to downsample the feed of the game, then it regenerates it in the headset, which does cost clarity as you have to deal with compression, and obviously using a wireless option could also introduce some added latency, compression, and it complicates the setup. I think it's great that the Quest can be connected to a PC, and it's by far the most popular headset for PC VR gaming, but imagine if you're new to VR, you have a gaming PC, and now you want to connect your Quest to it so you can play stuff like Half-Life Alyx. As enthusiasts who spend so much time living and breathing VR, this stuff is okay. But for a more casual gamer, or someone wanting to get into VR, having to look up a good cable, figuring out how to connect it up and get it working with all the required software, or trying to find out what router to buy, yeah, that's how we say it in the UK, get over it. This adds a ton of friction some people won't want to have to deal with. If you've got something like a Valve Index, you simply plug it in, start Steam VR, and it works every time. The amount of times I've seen a new game release on PC and people complain that it doesn't work with virtual desktop streaming must make developing VR games on PC an absolute nightmare. So PC connectivity is a win with the Quest, but it's also adding more complexity which could put people new to VR off. The really big win for the Quest is that it's popular and people buy games on it. Many developers have said that they were on live support before, and now with the Quest they're actually making money and can invest it in making more VR games. Without the games, it doesn't really matter what hardware you have. It's what sells the hardware, and we saw this with Half-Life Alyx release. So having experienced developers able to continue to invest and make more games is essential for the future of virtual reality gaming. But the Quest has a bad side. A side that in my opinion is holding VR games back, and it's giving gamers of non-VR stuff a bad impression. I'm talking about the people who actually buy games at full price on a regular basis, whether on consoles or PC, versus the casual Nintendo Wii crowd who think it's fun, play Beat Saber, and never use it again. Because these are the people VR needs to be sold to. They're the ones that want the big AAA games as well as the good quality indie titles. And the truth is that the Quest 2 natively simply isn't powerful enough. This is a big problem because even if you don't care about graphics, which people like to say, most mainstream actual gamers do. And when you look at the Upload VR showcase, which actually gets streamed on the IGN channel, and someone who is interested in VR decides to watch it to see if there's a reason to buy a headset, they see some of the stuff that is getting developed and released on the Quest, and it's a very bad look. It's not just the graphics, the amount of RAM and CPU power is so poor you can forget about anything with complex AI. Anything with larger, more open world environments that don't look and feel like a 15-year-old game, you just can't run any modern games on this thing in VR. The games in the Quest look rough for the most part. Extremely low resolution textures, low resolution shimmery visuals, it's rough. But if you're a developer making a VR game, how can you ignore the device that has the majority share of the market right now? So you end up making your game with the Quest in mind, which limits the vision of what you actually can do and create. PC VR isn't really the answer either. There are so many different combinations of headsets and controllers, it becomes very complex for developers to support them all, and if they don't, they get negative reviews. The PC crowd also seem to spend most of their money on high-end PC components and the latest headset, but when it comes to buying games, they always seem to want to wait for a sale. I think if we had better games this would help, but most things that come to PC are ports of Quest games now, and if we're lucky, we get some slightly enhanced visuals. I also feel like sales, even on the Quest 2, are starting to slow down. If you look at something like Red Matter 1 versus Red Matter 2, the first game has over 4,000 reviews, whilst the sequel has just over 1,000. This is a quarter of the reviews. And yeah, the first game released a while ago, but games get most of their sales within the first few weeks of release. So the people who bought the first game clearly aren't coming back to play the second. I think a lot of this is simply down to the lack of good quality games that are getting released. Most people aren't going to be checking what games come out all the time, and if they do check and they don't see anything good, eventually they're just going to forget about it, and a lot of this is down to Oculus, which are now Meta. First, why buy a company for $2 billion, build out a good brand like Oculus, and then just rename the company to Meta? Most people used to say I'm using an Oculus, not a Quest. It was a great brand that people knew, and tying this device to Meta taints the general public's view of it. Second, Meta have clearly stopped trying to even bother pretending to care about gaming. They used to make some of the best VR games for PC that would come out on a regular basis. The last big exclusive from them was Resident Evil 4, which released towards the end of 2021, about 18 months ago. Grid Legends got a VR port for the Quest, and it looked so bad that even Meta didn't bother trying to market it. Splinter Cell VR was dropped. Assassin's Creed VR is now apparently going to be multi-platform, which actually isn't a bad thing, but it shows that Meta aren't spending money on game development anymore. All they care about is the metaverse, something that people literally take the piss out of. And in my opinion, this pursuit of creating the metaverse so that they can just earn money from ad revenue could end up costing them big time if and when it probably fails. So whilst the Quest 2 has lots of pros, for me, the important part of VR are the games, and the Quest 2 has had a negative impact on those, but I can't deny that without it, we might not even have VR gaming at all right now. My personal hopes lie with PSVR 2, and we're already seeing the positive impact that it's having on the mainstream media. People's perceptions of what VR games can actually be, with games like Gran Turismo 7, Resident Evil 8 VR, and Horizon Call of the Mountain, and if they continue to support it, which they will, with high quality VR games and ports, then I think that VR gaming is in safe hands with Sony. As for PC VR, right now my setup is mostly used to play VR mods of non-VR games, with the occasional VR only release. I hope that the success of the PSVR 2 can get more developers to exclude the Quest going forward and release games for PSVR 2 and PC so that we can finally see what this incredible medium can actually offer us gamers going forwards. These videos are only possible thanks to the generous community around this channel. If you want to see more videos like this, then check the links in the description for my Patreon and YouTube memberships, which start from as little as $1 per month. Thank you for your support.